Hello, good day everyone, and welcome to this week's Make It Snappy session. You here with Yashin from Modern One Solve, and the tool we will be covering today is the sheet metal corner seam. So the corner seam is a great tool to use to control the behavior in terms of your sheet metal components. So how are two flanges meeting, and it will also give you a little bit more flexibility as to control how your sheet metal components are going to be folded and how the flat pattern will appear. So it is a multi-purpose tool. It can also be used to transform a unfoldable component, so something that's been created inside of Inventor and not in sheet metal. You'd like to actually get a flat pattern out of it to be manufactured. So you'll notice on screen I do have a box that's been shelled out with the thickness of my sheet metal rule. Okay, very important. And I'd like to transform this into a foldable model. To do that, I'm going to use the corner seam tool. So I can simply head over to the ribbon, start the function, and you'll notice there are two toggles, seam and rip. Okay, so I'm going to start off with using rip. This allows us to define an open area on our piece of material so we can then fold it. And all I have to do is simply select an edge. So for the rip tool, you can select two edges at one time. So I've just selected two corners or edge corners on my box, and you'll notice between the two red planes, that's where your gap will be created. So there are a couple toggles in your dialog box to define an overlap. Okay, so you'll see it's now extended and the gap is a little bit smaller, and the one side of material will be a little bit smaller. So you can use those options as flexes to define your gap distance on your edge. So once I've done that, I can simply select apply, and there we go. We have our two gaps that have been created. So I'm going to head over to the other side and do something very similar. Select the two edges, and of course have the gap distance as no overlap, so symmetric on either side, and simply select apply. Once that's done, I do have gaps on my model. However, I won't be able to fold or unfold this component just yet because there are no bends, okay, where the flanges actually meet the base material. Okay, they meet directly and there's no bending going on over there, as you can see. So in order to do that, I'm going to use a tool from a previous session, bend. Okay, so we have seen how this works. You can have a look at our previous YouTube videos to get a good understanding how the bend tool works. In this case, what I'm going to do is select the edges of my model one at a time, and you'll notice that bends are created between the flange and the base sheet. Okay, once I've got all corners, this model can be folded. Before I actually fold it, what I'm going to do is just quickly apply two flanges onto those edges over there, and what we're going to do is control the behavior between these two flanges. And in order to do that, I'm going to use the corner seam tool. Okay, so when I started off, in this case, I'm going to use the seam option, select the two edges of those flanges, and you'll notice it actually creates extensions of those flanges and defines a corner point, so where they meet, and we can control how this corner is going to behave. So you've got similar options as you would with the rip tool. No overlap, so the gap distance is exactly the same between those two extended items. Alternatively, you do have overlap, so we'll have a piece of material that's larger in size and on the other end shorter. And then you've got reverse overlap, which of course switches it onto the other side. In this case, what I'm going to do is have a symmetric gap and select apply, and there is your corner seam that has been created, which will change the behavior of your components as well as the flat pattern. So now at this point, what I can actually do is just select flat pattern, and there you go. You've transformed a solid Inventor feature into a foldable model by using the corner seam tool. Hope you enjoyed that session. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel for more content.